So, hello, and today I'm going to have the most wonderful conversation with Susan. Susan Goodrich is hailing from Ontario, which is different for us, which is lovely. Welcome, Susan. And Susan is a transformational life coach, but now business coach as well, which I think we're going to perhaps dive straight into because she says she's been working on some interesting things going on here. And I think a transition is always good. Or is it a new start? You tell me, Susan.
It's kind of a transition, I almost even wanted to say an addition,
Ah,
really, because the work that I've already been doing, I can see that there's a system and a consistency, and I can see how I can take that and apply it to the business piece that I've been doing because I was using it myself. I was applying it to my own business, and I was like, oh, wow, why can't I just bring this to the world? I think it feels like it's ready. So, yeah.
so is it fair to say then you're not coaching on running a business, but you're talking to business people? Is that it?
I am, how would you say that? Yes, I'm talking to business, basically female entrepreneurs.
Okay.
That's really more to the group because what I understand is that most of the time, when we're running a business, the people that we serve are really the people that are like us, right? And for the most part, that's who we draw to
Yes,
ourselves, or people who
yes.
are like-minded, right? Who are a few steps behind us. And I
Yeah.
thought, well, I could share my journey and help other people out. That's kind of what I wanted to be able to do. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So what are you enabling them to do? What do you think you're bringing to them then?
I want to say I want to help them fall in love with their business, because we often have a love-hate relationship with our business. Oh, I got to do that piece. And I really want to help them get organized because certainly as a newer entrepreneur or even an experienced one, right? As we start to add in new pieces in our business, we start to get really overwhelmed with all of the components of our business. And so what I want to do is help them organize it by identifying, I've kind of identified 8 areas, and I see how I want to help them create flow, but I also want them to be able to create an intention for each area because I think we often don't kind of lay it out so that that we can manage it. And what I know as a trainer, right? And how we learn is we learn by chunking our information, right? So
Mm,
that we, rather than trying to get lost in holding all the details, all spinning here, is if we can take them and put them and I want to call it a business bucket, into a bucket. Then when we're looking at what we need to do, we can, okay, now I'm going to take this bucket and then address the important things in here and knowing what each piece does and how it flows.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's tough. It's tough being an entrepreneur. It really is, isn't it? And I don't, it doesn't matter whether you're just starting out or whether you've been doing it a few years, there's still always so much to do. And I feel as though I'm always on that, not that fight, but that search almost of how do I simplify this? How do
Mm.
I, because I never have just one business. I'm always juggling balls in the air. It is just, and maybe I can say it's a fault, or maybe it's just a characteristic of mine. I never do just one thing when I can do three at once. And yeah, it does become overwhelming and you can burn out. And so when you were saying there were 8 areas, I immediately envisaged the sort of the wheel of life. Is that what you're
It's
talking
kind of
about?
like that. Yes, I was just building a graphic for it.
Mm. So
Mhm.
so you remind me of the eight different areas.
Well, the 8 areas that I've defined in the process that I've been working, they kind of
Okay.
work for me because I've been a successful entrepreneur in the past as a software trainer, and I'm tracking 27 years this October. So I've been around for a while, and I thought, man. So what I recognized was, one of the important things, of course, is your mission and your vision,
Mm.
right? Because I really want to, I create my system is called the Soul Aligned System, and I'm building a soul aligned blueprint, business blueprint, so that we can lay this out. And I think by having a vision and mission, obviously we have a focus, right? Because what we focus on expands, as they say, right?
Yeah.
And then, but the foundation of our business is us. And so I always want to make sure that us or we or me, right, gets the attention and the time and gets my needs met, right? Gets my feeling. And so I use a process called emotional alchemy. I've called it the resistance remover. It's a process that helps us identify what we're feeling. And then a process that helps us drop into what we need. And then from there, we can get curious. We need to have compassion, right? Compassion, curiosity, drop into our creativity that then helps us take those aligned actions that are aligned with what our soul is calling us to. So we need, right, the vision. We have our foundation is us, which is the second part. I believe our environment is really important to be organized. It needs to be functional. I want it to be inviting and tidy. And I don't always do that, right? Like sometimes over there, it looks like a disaster, but on the weekend, I was like, oh, I'm going to tidy this up. And it just feels so amazing, right? When we do that, right? And then, of course, there are the four main pieces, which are your development. So what program are you developing next or expanding into, learning? Because I think we should always be growing. I think we always are growing. That's my sense.
Yeah.
Right. Then, and from the development, then we need to step into marketing. And one of the things that this was my big kind of downfall because I didn't think I actually ever marketed in my other business because it was B2B. And I had built it inside another business. And what I've learned for me is that it's about networking, connections, relating, getting people know me through someone else. I know that that's the methodology that I need. And believe it or not, I've learned that through human design, identifying what it is that we are best meant to do in marketing. Because I was in another program and they're like, oh, you got to do Facebook and you got to do all these other postings. And I'm like, I'm not getting any results because that's not how I'm meant to market, right?
Yes.
And so we can get really overwhelmed. And I understand that there's like 25 different ways that you can market.
I would say it's about 52, actually.
Oh, wow. I guess as a business coach, you would know that.
Yeah. Marketing is a speciality. It's yes, when I was sort of doing my certification for sort of marketing and sales, there was at least 52. That is overwhelming. And again, I just like you, I just want to hone it down and find a sort of core of that and simplify that and what works for you, because it's people go, oh, I hate marketing. And it's like, well, what do you mean by marketing? Oh, well, all that stuff on social. No, hang on a minute. Marketing is simply the getting of clients. And there are so many different ways of doing that. And what talks to you and your business. It's what, as you say, is aligned. It has to be aligned to you.
Yes. And for sure, yes, I see the 52. I'm like blown away. That number. I know it's a big animal, and no wonder we always get overwhelmed by it.
Yeah,
And
sure.
what I wanted to do is I actually had to reframe it because I had been in these marketing programs and I had a coach and I said, honestly, I don't really believe in marketing. And she was like, oh, you're going to be difficult to deal with. Because I didn't believe in it, but I was in it, and there was something like everything kept saying we needed to do this. So I was like in there, right? So, and what I found a lot of that was there was so much outside in, like you got to do this and you got to do this, and there was all of this stuff that they were telling us in all these programs. And I watched not just myself, but many of the other women that were in these programs become so overwhelmed, so overwhelmed. And I thought, wait a minute, we're women. As a feminine power transformational coach, I know that we need our wisdom comes from our body. It comes from within. And so I wanted to be able to, how do I work this from the inside out? right? How do we use our feminine powers? Our, our bodies are so wise, right? When we can learn to tap into the wisdom of our body and learn to work from the inside out. Yes, we need these other things, but how do we bring them together and marry them, right?
Mm,
So
mm.
that's kind of where how I've been looking at trying to reframe it. And then what I found was when I did that and I started doing some of the stuff, I was like, oh, look how creative I can be in this area, right? Like I can, and then because I always think, like if I'm looking over here because I have my whole business laid out over
Yeah.
here,
Yeah.
at least the components. And I look at my mission, and my mission is to raise the vibration of the planet by helping people have more fun, joy, love, and play. And well, why not play with your marketing, right? Like in the right. So
Absolutely.
that's yeah, yeah. And I
Yeah.
reframed it in it as instead of calling it marketing, because the word felt very dirty to me. I call I reframed it to magnetizing because that's what we're really doing. We're magnetizing, getting people to understand what we have and invite, and then, kind of creating a magnet for them to be interested.
Yeah.
And then the other part, like I said, there's four parts that kind of work, right? The delivery or the development, the marketing. And then I put sales in a separate bucket
Yeah.
because I it's really then about the relationship. Once you've made the connection, now it's the nurturing of the relationship. So that because when I have clients, I serve them where they are. I meet them where they are. It's not
Mm.
about them fitting into my thing. It's me inviting them into a safe container where we can explore what it is that's getting in their way. And so for me, it's about relationship building. And I got that from my other business because even though it was B2B, right, business to business, and I would have a relationship in a large corporation with somebody in a corporation, they would continue to feed me work, but they weren't going to do that if I'm not continually nurturing that relationship. Excuse me. So that's the sales piece. And then of course there's the delivery, right? Like this is the part that we're always usually best at, right? Is the delivery piece. And so how all these other pieces support that. And then
Mm.
of course the last piece is money. And I mean, we have to have a way to collect the money and bring it in. But I also know that in order to, and this is kind of something that just came up for me recently, was in order to flow the dough, we need to let go. And, so we need to know where our money needs to go, what we want to do with our money. At least I know that that's true for me. I don't know, it may not be for everyone, but I always need to have a reason for that money. I need to have a place for it. When I'm open to receiving it, because that's a whole piece of it, right? We're going to be setting intention
Yeah. Yeah.
and learning to create that reciprocity, that piece where we're learning to receive and flowing it, right? Flowing it, whether it means for something for us, whether it's for giving, whether it's just meant to flow. And I've always flowed money. Money has always flowed to me. And it was only when I got really super overwhelmed and I became aware was that I had started to create some resentments around things because I didn't have the capacity to hold things. I didn't have the support that I needed. And that actually was it was kind of like the log jam, like it was like the finger in the dam. Like the money wasn't flowing because my finger was in the dam. I was blocking it with my energy. And so I recognize it's really important to be able to flow our money and to
Yeah.
have a really great relationship for it. Right? We need to know, right, what we need it for.
Yeah, that's really interesting actually. And I'm thinking there's somebody I love following, and she goes through because we so many people talk about manifesting and attracting, and her big thing is let it go. Yes, have your intention and put it out there, and then forget about it. Don't even, and she will make a vision board and she'll make it and then she'll put it away and she will never look at it. It's not one of these things about look at your vision board every morning. It's no, put the intention out there and then detach from the outcome. So when you were saying about detaching,
Yeah.
that's
hmm It's
that's
expecting this or something better is really because we can't see. Most of the time, we've got our blinders on, anyways. We can't see the possibilities because they're unlimited, right? So when we can, so there's lots of processes that I help people bring I call it bring your body back online so that we're not in that fight or flight, that nervous system, because when we
Mm.
are, we don't have access to all our intelligence, our brilliance, right? Learning to trust in ourselves. There's a lot of processes that I use that really help us bring in that. And it's interesting that you were talking about manifesting, as I'm actually coaching on a program right now. It's called Secrets to Manifest Your Dreams. And because I was doing the dream coach, like I'm also a dream coach as well. That's why I said I'm also incorporating this piece for business. And what I'm recognizing is the same things that keep showing up everywhere. And with the manifesting piece is that I know, because I've manifested a lot of things in my life, and I realize it's really being in the feeling vibrational energy of what it is that you're trying to invite in.
Mm.
And I can see the things that get in the way, right? Like if we have to stay in that higher vibrational frequency, what's getting in the way of that, right? There's our thoughts, there's our beliefs, right? There's how we're, and that cause our feelings. And so these are pieces that I'm coaching on in the Secrets to Manifest Your Dream. Because like, how are we going to keep our vibration high, right? That's kind of what I'm coaching on. What's getting in the way? A big one I see is people like, oh, this came up last week. It was like, I'm so exhausted from having to tolerate and holding in my emotions, holding in my anger. And I was like, well, no, most people sweep those things under the carpet, right? Their emotions under the carpet. Sometimes we do spiritual bypass. Oh, we're not supposed to, or we were taught not to, but we're meant to express them. And there's appropriate ways to do that. But what they do need to be processed, because I know that if we don't, they make us sick.
Yeah, yeah. What are your feelings? Because I know you do a lot about female empowerment, but it's also about getting to know you and looking after you. Where would you say the intuition comes into this?
Well, it really comes in from a deeper, wider center. Like we need to be really grounded in order to access that. I use that term grounded, but really present in our body. We need to feel safe, and that can be a process in itself. So I use a lot of meditation to bring us really present into our being, because that's kind of where we start to connect with that. I've done a lot of work. I've explored like 4 different areas. One with archetypes, one they called saboteurs, which they did through factor analysis. Like these are all characters, right? Archetype. I think of an archetype as a really good example. A set of characteristics
Yeah.
that have kind of, some of those have invaded our life, like invaded our psyche. And when we can connect with what those are, and we recognize the patterns and we hear the lies that they're telling us and causing certain behaviors that sabotage our success, right? When we can become aware of those, then we can start to actually shift them, right? We can start to transform them. And so then I have a matrix that I work with that actually, once I understand where you are in that process, I can see what it is that you need to be working on, what we need to shift, what the skills and capacities are. And so I
Mm.
often see that the capacity to hold more, to be able to do more, really has a lot to do with the practices of just bringing our bodies back online and doing it on a regular basis.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of people get sort of hidebound in like, oh, well, I don't know how to do that, and how am I doing it right, and and all that when it comes to anything that might be on that sort of more spiritual level.
Yeah. And the truth is, we always know, right? The truth comes from within. Like we already know. I
Mm.
do this with my son sometimes. I'll ask him a question. He goes, I don't know. I say, yeah, you do. Just sit for a minute. think about, drop down into that deeper center, right? Just be with it and listen, and it'll come, right? It's just being expansive. Our bodies are so brilliant.
Mm. Because would you agree? I think we've got into this habit almost, or this way of being that we look to outside for the information, for the answers, because there is so much out there, isn't there? And I don't know about you, but especially especially in the online space now, there is just so much, and you're bombarded, and you get the impression that everybody knows what you don't. They're the experts in this, they're the experts in that. To find answers, you've got to go out there because it's all out there. And yeah, I think sometimes you just need to go, stop.
Yes, well, the
I
truth
actually
is
have a lot of answers.
we need to
Yeah.
learn to be inner referral, right?
Mm,
Yes, we were raised with, yeah, everybody outside knows more than we do,
yeah.
but really, we really know we're the only one that knows what's right for us.
Yeah.
We're really the only one that knows that what's right for us. And and that's the pieces that I want to help people bring in, get connect to so that they can connect to those pieces for in relationship to each piece of their business and their life. Like our life also has like the wheel as well, right? Like where we need to be able to do that. But there's a lot of crossover. That's what I'm seeing, that there's a lot of crossover between what's
Mm,
happening in our business. So things like our confidence and our creativity, and I call it curiosity, but just really our spirituality, right? Like those are three things that I coach on, but they in the life category, but they also spill over well into our business.
mm, yeah. I remember when I was sort of not making that transition, but I started off as a life coach, but because I had run businesses as well, and you have as well, that I love talking to entrepreneurs, to business people. It used to slightly annoy me because I did quite a while. I was on the whole sort of the work-life balance, but actually I hated that phrase because to me it wasn't a balance. If you're running your own business, which I'm sure is like a lot of your clients are,
Yeah.
it's integrated. It isn't
Yeah.
because
Well,
I
and
think
it's
about the
also,
balance. Yeah, it just makes
yeah.
out that sort of work is the hard, tough stuff, and life is the fun stuff, and you've got to get the balance right. And it's like, no, hang on a minute, they're like that.
Yeah, there is quite a bit of integration for sure. Like one of the things that I think well, and I always think of life as really being a balancing act. It's never balanced ever,
Yeah.
ever, it's always a balancing act.
Mm,
That's how I've always experienced it anyways.
okay.
Right. And be okay with where it's out of. But what I love about being able to do an assessment, like taking a look at a wheel, is that sometimes all you have to do is look at it and go, oh, wait a minute. I wonder how that one's empty over there. I wonder what I need. Right. You just get really curious.
Mm,
And sometimes you'll see that shift like in the next week. You'll just see it shift. Sometimes just bringing awareness to it just is like, oh, wait a minute. Maybe I need to do a little something over there. We don't even have to even physically do something. We just have to really just focus on it, going, I wonder what that would look like if it was filled up, What would it feel like? Oh, how nice would that bring my life back into balance?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Always about the feeling.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
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 Mhm.
And do you think, I was thinking about this, because we talk about, oh, people need to do this and bring themselves back or stop and think. People are so busy these days, and I do wonder. And if you've got a routine in the morning, that's fine. But for so many people, it's like, oh yeah, when am I going to have time to do that? And you, it's actually taking the time to stop and breathe and think about it, or as you say, look at those areas and go, where is that missing? What is missing there? Do we give ourselves enough time, do you think?
I think we need to slow down. I think that's the problem, right? Like we need to slow down because when we're so busy,
Mm,
we're not in our bodies. And again, we only have access to a very small part of our intelligence when we're like that. And when we're present, we've slowed down, we have a connection to unlimited access, like unlimited possibilities, is that's when the real answers start to drop in and it gets easy. We're not meant to push or shove or force. That's definitely not the feminine way. But I have to tell you that the first time I did some of this, work around archetypes, and I had looked at my own, what I call inner enemies, and I had a plethora of them. I had 5 of them. I actually have a drawing somewhere, but one of them, her name was Betty Bulldozer. And if that doesn't tell you what she was like, and I can catch myself there every once in a while because they're part of our deep unconscious. But yes, and it's when I catch her, I'm like, oh, there she is. Hey Betty, how's it going? Let's see what we can do. And instead of, being at war with those parts of ourselves, really learning to embrace them, just recognize them and celebrate them. Because one of the things that happened to me when I first started doing this work was when I realized I was like that, I went immediately to shame.
Mm.
And the research says that 80% of the time women realize they've done something wrong, they go to shame. And it is one of the lowest vibrating emotions, and it keeps us stuck. We can't move. We keep them secret. We don't tell anybody. And it's only when we start to share that secret, that it actually starts to shine the light and there's actually growth. But we're going to stay stuck if we're sitting with a bunch of secrets. Yeah.
Yeah, we are. We're very good at shame. Do you have when we say about time to do this, do you have like a morning routine? Do you set aside time in the day? How does it work for you?
I have a morning routine, though I've kind of gone off of it because I'm so connected now. In the morning, I'm just like writing I was like, I wonder, but I still do it. And so, I often light a candle. I've done this for years. When my kids were little, I would just get up extra early. I would make the time for myself.
Yeah.
And I would light a candle and I would burn some sage and ring my little Tibetan bells and then listen to a meditation. And that was where I started. But when I came across some of these transformational these transformational life processes, one of my very favorite ones, and I've got a couple of names for it, it's called the emotional alchemy or the resistance remover. And it allows me to tap into what am I feeling? And then what am I needing? Because as women, we're really bad at getting our needs met, right? And
Yeah.
then dropping into curiosity, which is really in our heart, and wondering how we're going to get our needs met. And it's not about knowing the how or figuring out the how, it's about being curious about it and allowing and listening in a deeper way, slowing down and just letting the answers come.
I love that. And that is sounding actually very familiar to me because when you were talking about the archetypes, there was a time a few years back when I was looking to all the archetypes. I thought, that's a heck of a lot. And I sort of was, thinking about all this and that actually 4 would serve me. And some might have heard this story before. So my routine in the morning is thinking about the 4. And I say that they are um, like the goddess, which is your inner
Mm-hmm.
being, your mother, your boss, and your lover. And I say in the morning, you can ask yourself when you wake up. So you ask your goddess, how do I want to feel today? And it was you saying about need. You ask your mother, what do I need today?
Oh.
And then your boss is, okay, what do I need to do today? Because I think you do need to arrange your sort of thoughts around that. And then the lover is, how am I going to bring joy into today?
Mm.
And I just thought, and whenever I've sort of said that to people, they say, "Oh, I love that. I love those 4 questions," and they just set you up for the day, I think, and sort of setting that intention. So if you, because I'm very conscious of the time now, it's amazing how quickly it goes. leaving, let's think about what would you love the listeners to leave with? What would be something that you would pass on to them for them to take away from this?
Well, in light of our conversation, I would say slow down and listen.
Mm, mm, yeah, definitely. Somebody in the space who sort of says, slow down to speed up. In other
Mhm.
words, yeah, you will only be able to sort of progress and move faster and get to where you want to be by slowing down.
Yeah, and listening, right? Because when we're aligned
Yeah.
and we're connected, because that's the other thing is that I do a connection exercise, right? To make sure that I'm connected to both the Great Mother, the earth, and, the divine energies that are up and around.
And how long does it take?
Well, I spent mine now as because I have the space to do it. I love my process, and I actually spend 2 hours probably doing it.
Whoa.
Yeah, but it's also part of my development. It spills very much into my business. So I'm really
Yeah.
literally already working by the time
Okay.
I'm done, right? Like it's like what are all the things that I have to do and take care of and reverse engineer my day and
Yeah.
many of those things. But I used to do it when I just did the very early morning, just the very
Mm,
other part, probably about 20 minutes. And it doesn't even have to take that long.
no.
Sometimes I draw an inspiration card, I read the definition, and I'm like, oh, there's some juice in here. And I might journal a little bit about it because, yeah, there's always great wisdom.
Yeah, yeah. And whether it's 5 minutes, 20 minutes, it's just the best way to start the day, isn't it, really?
Oh, yeah. Sometimes it's just, going outside
Mm.
and, excuse me, and connecting with nature, right? Sometimes it's just a 5 minute stand out there. And I know I didn't share this, but I also have a hot tub. And I also have a process I even use when I'm in the hot tub that I also to
Wow.
just, yeah. Anyway, and yeah, to get
Yeah.
some answers, to get the right answers.
Okay. So it's just slow down, everybody. Slow
Slow
down.
down.
Okay. Susan, thank you so much. I'm sure that's been so enlightening to a lot of people. And if they
Uh,
just take that away, then you've done a great job. So thank you.
well,
Thank you for
thank
joining me
you. Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here.
and mine and mine.